Maya Johnson, a 28-year-old Black American marketing analyst, stepped off the elevator onto the executive floor of the Pinewood Resort, her legs heavy with exhaustion. The digital display had flickered between floors 15 and 16 before settling on 17 with a soft ding, as if reluctant to deliver her to her destination. A dull throb pulsed behind her temples, a fever that had clung to her for 2 days, undeterred by the medication she'd swallowed an hour ago. Her dark skin glistened faintly with sweat under the hallway's warm lighting, and her neatly braided hair felt like a weight she could barely carry. After 3 months of orchestrating every detail of Morrison Enterprises' annual leadership retreat, she'd earned the right to collapse in her assigned suite, room 1748. All she wanted was sleep, a few hours to forget the endless emails, schedules, and corporate expectations that had consumed her life. "Almost there, Maya," she muttered, her voice hoarse in the plush silence of the hallway. The Pinewood Resort, nestled in the snowy peaks of Colorado, was a study in luxury. Polished wood paneling, thick carpets that muffled her footsteps, and brass fixtures that gleamed like they were mocking her modest Seattle apartment. She fumbled in her purse for her keycard, her vision blurring from the fever and the cold medicine that had seemed like a good idea earlier. The small white card slipped between her trembling fingers, the numbers 1748 swimming slightly as she squinted at them. Or was it 1847? She'd written it down somewhere, but her notebook was buried in her bag, and her brain felt like it was wading through fog. She approached what she believed was her room, the door marked with a brass plate that read 1847. The numbers seemed to pulse in her hazy vision, but the keycard slid into the slot with a satisfying beep, and the green light flashed. Relief washed over her as she pushed open the heavy door and stepped into the darkened suite. Moonlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting silver shadows across a spacious living area that felt larger than her entire studio back home. A sleek sofa and a glass coffee table caught the light, and the faint scent of cedar and leather lingered in the air, a masculine note that her fever-dulled mind barely registered. "Thank you, universe, for this upgrade," Maya whispered, her voice faint as she shuffled toward the bedroom through an arched doorway. The king-sized bed loomed like a beacon, its crisp white sheets and plush pillows promising refuge. She didn't bother with the lights. The city's glow from below was enough to navigate by. Her conference attire, a tailored blazer and pencil skirt, felt like a straitjacket as she peeled them off, folding them neatly over a chair. She slipped into a silk nightgown, a last-minute purchase urged by her coworker Sarah, its emerald fabric cool against her overheated skin. The bed enveloped her like a cloud, the Egyptian cotton sheets impossibly soft, the mattress molding to her aching body. Her shoulders relaxed for the first time in weeks, and her breathing slowed. As she sank deeper into the pillows, a subtle scent caught her attention. Something woody, expensive, like the cologne of a man who didn't need to announce his presence. It was comforting, almost familiar, but her exhausted mind dismissed it as part of the suite's luxury. Her last coherent thought was of the next day's opening ceremony, where she'd deliver a presentation to Morrison Enterprises' top executives. The pressure should have kept her awake, but the fever and medication dulled her anxiety, pulling her into the deepest sleep she'd had in months. Snow began to dust the resort's windows outside, blanketing the world in silence. Unbeknownst to Maya, she wasn't in room 1748. The suite belonged to Ethan Caldwell, the 35-year-old white American CEO of Morrison Enterprises, whose sharp intellect and unyielding control had built a Fortune 500 empire. His pale skin and dark hair, always impeccably styled, were as much a part of his image as his tailored suits. Ethan was still downstairs in the resort's conference center, his phone pressed to his ear as he navigated a tense call with London investors. His gray-blue eyes, flecked with gold, scanned the room with the precision of a predator, missing nothing. He was unaware that his meticulously ordered world was about to collide with a mistake that would change everything. Maya slept soundly, her dark skin luminous against the white sheets, her braids fanning across the pillow. The suite's elegance, the bed's comfort, and the faint cologne scent wrapped her in a false sense of security. In a few hours, the sun would rise, and with it would come a revelation unraveling her carefully planned life. But for now, she dreamed of a world where she didn't have to prove herself twice as challenging to be seen, utterly unaware that she was about to wake up in her boss's bed. Ethan Caldwell strode through the Pinewood Resort's lobby, his Italian leather shoes clicking against the marble floor in the pre-dawn stillness. The conference call with London investors had dragged on until 3 a.m., a grueling negotiation over a merger that could redefine Morrison Enterprises' global reach. His gray-blue eyes, sharp despite the hour, scanned the space, catching his reflection in the polished elevator doors. Dark hair still neat, gray suit crisp, posture unyielding. Exhaustion clawed at him, but control was his currency, and he never spent it lightly. The elevator hummed to the 17th floor as he mentally cataloged the day ahead. A 4-hour keynote address, catering approvals, and the inevitable crises that plagued corporate retreats. First, he needed a shower and a brief nap to reset. The hallway to room 1847 was silent, the plush carpet swallowing his steps. He slid his keycard into the slot, the soft beep echoing in the quiet. Stepping into his suite, he expected the familiar order of his temporary domain: minimalist furniture, a view of snow-dusted peaks, the faint scent of cedar from the air system. But something was off. A subtle fragrance, floral, warm, distinctly feminine, cut through the sterile luxury. His jaw tightened, instincts honed by years of corporate warfare snapping to attention. Was this a setup? Corporate espionage wasn't unheard of. Competitors had tried bolder moves to unsettle him. His hand hovered over his phone, ready to call security. Then he saw her. Through the bedroom archway, moonlight spilled across the king-sized bed, illuminating a woman curled on her side. Her dark skin glowed against the white sheets, her braided hair fanning across his pillow like spilled ink. The emerald silk of her nightgown clung to her curves, one slender shoulder exposed in the dim light. She was breathtaking, not the calculated beauty of the socialites who circled his world, but something raw, unguarded. Ethan froze, his analytical mind racing. Hotel error? Unlikely. Pinewood's staff was meticulous. A deliberate intrusion? Possible. But her peaceful sleep suggested otherwise. His eyes narrowed, scanning her face for clues. She looked familiar, though he couldn't place her. Perhaps a fleeting glimpse in a boardroom or a name on a report. He stepped closer, silent as a shadow, and noticed her slow, steady breathing, the faint flush on her cheeks hinting at illness. A purse sat on the chair, a keycard peeking out, its numbers obscured. His first instinct was to wake her and demand answers, but exhaustion weighed on him like a physical force. The merger talks had left him drained, his usual clarity frayed. The bed's far side looked impossibly inviting, a rare chance to steal a few hours of rest before the chaos of the retreat. He hesitated, logic warring with something more profound, an inexplicable pull toward this stranger who'd invaded his space. Ethan's life was built on eliminating variables, yet here was one he couldn't control. He considered the sofa, but it was too short for his frame, and the clock was ticking. Just a few hours, he muttered, loosening his tie with mechanical precision. He removed his suit jacket, folding it neatly, but kept his shirt and trousers on, a barrier of propriety. The mattress barely shifted as he lay down on the opposite edge, as far from her as possible. Her scent, jasmine, he realized, wrapped around him, both soothing and disorienting. He closed his eyes, trying to focus on his breathing, a technique to manage stress. But her presence was a pulse in the room. The soft rhythm of her breath, the warmth radiating from her side of the bed. This was madness. Ethan Caldwell didn't share spaces with strangers, let alone beds. His world was one of calculated risks. Every decision weighed against outcomes. Yet, as his body sank into the mattress, he felt an unfamiliar calm. She stirred slightly, a small sigh escaping her lips, and his eyes flicked to her face. In sleep, she looked vulnerable, almost fragile, starkly contrasting with the polished executives he dealt with daily. Who was she? A name flickered in his mind. Maya Johnson, the marketing analyst whose reports were unusually insightful. Could it be her? The thought lingered as exhaustion won, pulling him into a sleep more profound than any he'd known in years. Outside, the snow fell thicker, cloaking the resort in white. In a few hours, the sun would rise, exposing the mistake that had brought them together. For now, Ethan slept, unaware that the woman in his bed was about to unravel the control he'd spent a lifetime building. In the stillness of room 1847, the Pinewood Resort's opulent suite cradled Maya Johnson and Ethan Caldwell in a fragile cocoon of moonlight and exhaustion. The king-sized bed, vast as an ocean, held them on opposite shores, yet the distance felt illusory. Maya, her fever burning through the haze of cold medicine, drifted in a dreamlike state, her body heavy, but her mind untethered. Cool and smooth sheets anchored her to the moment, while the faint scent of Ethan's cologne, cedar and spice, wove through her senses, stirring something deep within her. She was unaware of the man lying mere feet away, his presence a silent pulse in the darkened room. Equally drained from his marathon of corporate negotiations, Ethan hovered on the edge of sleep, his disciplined mind fraying at the seams. The floral warmth of Maya's jasmine scent tugged at him, a quiet rebellion against the sterile order of his life. In the liminal space between wakefulness and dreams, their worlds collided. Maya stirred, a soft murmur escaping her lips, and her hand brushed the sheet, reaching toward an unseen anchor. Half conscious, Ethan felt the movement, his hand shifting in response. Their fingers grazed, a fleeting touch that sparked a current neither could fully comprehend. In that hazy, unguarded moment, something shifted. The barriers of their roles, CEO and analyst, stranger and stranger, dissolved under the weight of shared vulnerability. Lost in fevered fragments of dreams, Maya felt a warmth that wasn't just the bed's embrace. His control slipping, Ethan sensed a connection he hadn't sought but couldn't resist. Their bodies drew closer, not with intent, but with the instinct of two people seeking solace in a world that offered none. An incoherent and fleeting whispered conversation passed between them, words of loneliness and burdens carried too long. Their lips met, a tentative brush that deepened into something neither would fully recall. A moment of intimacy born of exhaustion and unspoken need. It was brief, blurred by medicine and fatigue, but undeniable in its consequence. As dawn crept toward the resort, painting the snow-draped peaks in shades of gray, they drifted apart again, the bed's expanse reclaiming its distance. Maya sank back into a fevered sleep, her braids tangled on the pillow, her silk nightgown clinging to her skin. Ethan, his breathing steady, slipped into a rest deeper than he'd known, his hand still curled near where hers had been. Neither would remember the details, only impressions of warmth, safety, and a fleeting sense of belonging that defied their waking realities. When the first light of morning pierced the suite's windows, Maya stirred, her fever finally breaking. Her eyes fluttered open, the fog of medicine lifting to reveal a clarity that brought instant dread. The bed was too luxurious, the room too masculine, the cologne scent too firm. Her heart stuttered as she registered the man beside her. His dark hair tousled, his shirt slightly unbuttoned, his features softened in sleep. Ethan Caldwell, her boss's boss's boss, the untouchable CEO, whose presence made boardrooms fall silent, lay mere inches away. Panic surged through her, a cold wave that drowned the lingering warmth of the night. "Oh God," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Her mind scrambled to piece together the night's events. The key card, the wrong room number, the bed that had felt like salvation. Had she climbed into Ethan Caldwell's bed? And why was he here, sleeping beside her? Her gaze darted around the suite, taking in the sleek furniture, the view of the mountains, details she'd missed in her haze. The key card on the chair mocked her. 1847, not 1748. A simple mistake, a transposed number, had landed her in a situation that could unravel her career. Maya's breath hitched as she tried to move, her silk nightgown catching on the sheets. The slight rustle stirred Ethan, his gray-blue eyes opening slowly, their gold flecks catching the morning light. He looked disoriented, almost human, before his gaze sharpened, locking onto her. "Who are you?" His voice was rough with sleep, but its authority sent a shiver down her spine. Maya froze, her heart hammering as she realized the gravity of her error. Though fragmented in her memory, the night's hazy intimacy hung between them like a ghost, its implications too vast to grasp. Maya Johnson sat rigid on the edge of the king-sized bed in room 1847, her heart pounding like a drum against her ribs. The Pinewood Resort suite, bathed in the soft glow of dawn, felt like a trap closing around her. The emerald silk of her nightgown clung to her skin, a flimsy shield against the reality of her mistake. She'd slept in the bed of Ethan Caldwell, the CEO of Morrison Enterprises. His dark hair was tousled, his gray-blue eyes, flecked with gold, now fully alert as he sat up, studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "Who are you?" he'd asked, his voice rough but commanding. And the question still hung in the air, heavy with implications. I'm so sorry, Mr. Caldwell," Maya stammered, her voice barely steady. "I'm Maya Johnson, from the marketing department. I organized this retreat. I thought this was my room, 1748. I must have mixed up the numbers." She gestured toward the key card on the chair, her hands trembling. "I ran a fever last night, so I took some cold medicine. I didn't mean to—" Her words faltered as she met his gaze, those eyes dissecting her like a merger proposal. Her mind raced, replaying the hazy fragments of the night, the warmth of his presence, a fleeting touch, something more she couldn't fully grasp. Had anything happened? The uncertainty twisted her stomach. Ethan's expression softened, but only slightly, as he leaned back against the headboard, his unbuttoned shirt revealing a sliver of his chest. "Maya Johnson," he repeated, as if testing the name. "The analyst whose reports keep landing on my desk. Detailed, sharp, occasionally bold." A flicker of recognition crossed his face, and Maya felt a strange mix of relief and dread. He knew her work, but that only heightened the stakes. "You're telling me you accidentally walked into my suite, climbed into my bed, and didn't notice?" Her cheeks burned. "The key card worked. I was out of it. Fever, medicine. I thought it was my room." She pulled the sheet higher, acutely aware of how little her nightgown covered. "I'll leave now, sir. This won't happen again." She started to slide off the bed, but his voice stopped her. "Wait." Ethan's tone was quieter now, less commanding, though no less intense. "You were sick, and you still managed to organize this entire retreat?" There was a note of curiosity, almost admiration in his voice. He stood, his movements fluid, and crossed to the window, the morning light catching the gold in his eyes. Most people would have called in sick. Maya hesitated, her instinct to flee warring with the pull of his attention. "I don't get to call in sick, Mr. Caldwell. People like me must work twice as hard to prove we belong here." The words slipped out, raw and unfiltered, and she regretted them instantly. But Ethan didn't flinch. Instead, he turned, his gaze locking onto hers with a new intensity. "Fair point," he said, his voice low. "And last night, what do you remember?" The question was loaded, and Maya's pulse quickened. The hazy impressions, his scent, a whispered moment, a warmth that felt too right, flashed through her mind, but she couldn't piece them together. "Not much," she admitted, looking away. "The fever, the medicine, it's all a blur. I know I didn't mean to be here." She risked a glance at him, expecting accusation, but found something else, a flicker of something unguarded, almost vulnerable in his expression. The air between them crackled for a moment, charged with the memory neither could fully articulate. Before either could say more, a sharp knock shattered the silence. "Mr. Caldwell," a crisp female voice called through the door. "Your revised schedule for this morning." Maya's blood froze. Claire Bennett, Ethan's assistant, was the last person who should find her here, in a nightgown, in the CEO's bed. "Bathroom." "Now," Ethan said under his breath, his tone urgent but calm. Maya grabbed her clothes from the chair, her heart racing as she darted through the archway to the ensuite bathroom, the door clicking shut behind her. Through the thin wood, she heard Ethan call, "One moment, Claire." The outer door opened, and Claire's polished voice filled the suite. Claire said, "I've moved your keynote to 10:30 to accommodate the London call," her tone clipped and professional. "Legal needs your signature on the merger papers by noon." Maya pressed her back against the bathroom door, clutching her blazer and skirt, her breath shallow. The reality of her situation crashed over her. If Claire saw her, the rumors would spread like wildfire, torching her career. She'd worked too hard to let a fever-induced mistake ruin everything. Ethan's voice was steady as he responded, "Leave the schedule on the desk. I'll review it after my shower." Maya caught the subtle edge in his tone, warning Claire not to linger. The door closed, and silence returned, but Maya stayed frozen, her mind spinning. What had happened last night? And why was Ethan looking at her like she was a puzzle he wanted to solve? Maya Johnson sat in a corner booth at Brood Awakening, a cozy Seattle coffee shop where the scent of roasted beans mingled with the hum of morning chatter. Her braided hair was pulled into a loose bun, and her tailored blazer, now slightly wrinkled, felt like a costume she no longer fit. 3 days had passed since the catastrophic morning at Pinewood Resort, where she'd woken in Ethan Caldwell's bed, his gray-blue eyes pinning her with suspicion and curiosity. The memory of their hazy night, whispered words, a fleeting touch, clung to her like the jasmine scent of her nightgown, refusing to fade. She sipped her decaf latte, the taste bitter against her lingering nausea, a symptom she couldn't yet name but feared might mean more than stress. Across from her, Lena Carter, her childhood friend and a freelance graphic designer, leaned forward, her curly hair bouncing as she gestured animatedly. Lena's warm brown eyes sparkled with concern and mischief, which had anchored Maya through countless crises since their Tacoma days. "Okay, spill it, Maya," Lena said, her voice low but insistent. "You've been dodging my texts since the retreat, and you look like you just survived a corporate Hunger Games. What happened in Colorado?" Maya's fingers tightened around her mug, the warmth grounding her as she debated how much to reveal. Lena was her safe harbor, the one person who'd seen her cry after her father left, who'd celebrated her scholarship to UW, who'd never judged her relentless drive to prove herself at Morrison Enterprises. But admitting she'd slept in her CEO's bed, even accidentally, felt like confessing to a crime. "I screwed up, Lena," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "Big time." Lena arched an eyebrow, leaning back with a playful smirk. "Define big time. Did you spill coffee on a client? Or accidentally pitch a $1 million campaign to the janitor?" Maya managed a weak smile, but it faded quickly. "I got the room number wrong at the resort. Thought I was in 1748, but ended up in 1847. Ethan Caldwell's suite." Lena's eyes widened, but Maya pressed on before she could interrupt. "I was running a fever, doped up on cold medicine. I climbed into his bed, not knowing it was his. He came back late, saw me, and didn't kick me out. We both slept there, and now I can't stop thinking about it." Lena let out a low whistle, setting her coffee down. "Ethan Caldwell, the ice-cold CEO who makes executives sweat through their suits? You slept in his bed? Like, slept, or—" Her question hung in the air, mirroring Maya's uncertainty about the night's blurred edges. "Just slept, I think," Maya said, though her voice wavered. "It's fuzzy. There was this moment, his hand, my hand. Something felt right. But I was out of it, and so was he." She rubbed her temples, the nausea flaring again. "Then Claire, his assistant, almost caught me there. If she'd seen me, my career would be over. I'm already on thin ice as the girl who has to prove she's not just a diversity hire." Lena's smirk vanished, replaced by a fierce protectiveness. "First, you're not just anything. You're the brains behind that retreat, and everyone knows it. Second, this sounds like a fever-induced mistake, not a scandal. But you're freaking out more than usual. What's going on?" Maya hesitated, her fingers tracing the rim of her mug. The nausea, fatigue, and how her favorite coffee suddenly smelled off were puzzle pieces she wasn't ready to assemble. "I don't know," she admitted. "I keep replaying that night, wondering if I did something stupid. And Ethan looked at me like he saw me, not just some analyst. It's messing with my head." Lena reached across the table, squeezing Maya's hand. "Listen, you're allowed to be human. You were sick, you made a mistake. But if Caldwell's giving you hard eyes, that's his problem, not yours. Protect yourself, Maya. Men like him don't play fair. They've got too much power. If you're feeling something, figure out what it means before you let it ruin you." Maya nodded, Lena's words cutting through her fog. "I want to forget it and focus on work. The retreat's opening ceremony is tomorrow, and I'm presenting to 200 executives. I can't afford to screw up again." But even as she spoke, a wave of dizziness hit, and she pressed a hand to her stomach, the unspoken fear growing heavier. Lena's eyes narrowed, catching the gesture. "You're not just stressed, are you? You look like you haven't slept in a week, and you're drinking decaf. Maya, when's the last time you—" She stopped, her gaze sharpening. "You need to see a doctor. Soon." Maya's heart skipped, Lena's suspicion mirroring her own. "It's probably just the flu," she said, but the words felt hollow. She stood, forcing a smile. "I've got to get back to the office. Thanks for listening, Lena. I don't know what I'd do without you." "Any time," Lena said, standing to hug her. "But don't ghost me again. And get that checked out, okay? I'm not ready to be an aunt, but I'm here if you need me." Maya laughed, the sound brittle, and headed for the door, the weight of her secret growing with every step. Maya Johnson stood in the stark fluorescent light of the Morrison Enterprises bathroom, her hands trembling as she stared at the small white stick on the counter. 2 pink lines glared back, as undeniable as a headline. pregnant. The word echoed in her mind, a seismic shift that threatened to crack the foundation of her carefully built life. 3 weeks had passed since the night at Pinewood Resort, where she'd mistakenly slept in Ethan Caldwell's bed, their hazy connection leaving fragments of warmth and whispers she couldn't fully piece together. Her braided hair was tucked into a neat bun, but her tailored blouse felt too tight, as if her body already knew what her mind was struggling to accept. She'd suspected for a week, the nausea that turned coffee into poison, the exhaustion that outstripped her usual 14-hour workdays, the tenderness in her chest that made her wince. Lena's words at the coffee shop pushed her to buy the test, but seeing the result weakened her knees. 8 weeks, she calculated, her heart sinking as the timeline pointed squarely to that night in room 1847. How had a fevered mistake led to this? She slipped the test into her purse, burying it beneath presentation notes, and splashed water on her face. Her reflection looked hollow, the weight of the secret pressing against her ribs. Back at her cubicle, the hum of the 32nd floor felt like static against her racing thoughts. The Henderson merger, Morrison's latest high-stakes deal, consumed the marketing department, and Maya had been leading the market analysis, proving her team's worth. But now, none of it seemed to matter. How could she tell Ethan, the CEO, whose gray-blue eyes had lingered on her unsettlingly? A man who built his empire on control would hardly welcome a surprise that could upend his world. She needed to focus. Her presentation was tomorrow, but her phone buzzed, pulling her back to reality. A text from Lena. "Is the doctor's appointment yet? Don't ignore this, Maya." Before she could reply, a shadow fell over her desk. Claire Bennett, Ethan's assistant, stood there, her sharp features set in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a flawless chignon, her suit as crisp as her ambition. "Maya." Claire's voice was syrupy, laced with an edge that made Maya's skin crawl. "I've noticed you've been distracted lately. Everything okay?" The question was a trap, and Maya knew it. Claire had circled her since the retreat, her glances loaded with suspicion. Maya had overheard whispers. Claire's unrequited feelings for Ethan were an open secret among the assistants, fueling her resentment of anyone who caught his attention. Maya said, "I'm fine, Claire," forcing her voice to stay even, and just prepping for the Henderson presentation. She turned back to her computer, but Claire didn't move. "Impressive work," Claire said, her tone implying the opposite. "Mr. Caldwell's been praising your reports. Unusual for him to notice someone so junior." The jab was subtle, but it landed. Maya's fingers froze on her keyboard. Claire's jealousy was palpable, a mix of professional rivalry and personal bitterness over Ethan's apparent interest in Maya. She'd seen Maya leaving the executive floor at Pinewood, though not the room, and the dots she was connecting were dangerous. "Thanks for the feedback," Maya said tightly, standing to gather her files. "I've got a meeting." She brushed past Claire, her heart pounding. The pregnancy test in her purse felt like a ticking bomb. She couldn't keep this from Ethan, not when it involved him. But the thought of facing him, his piercing gaze, his need for control, made her stomach churn. By late afternoon, Maya's resolve hardened. She took the elevator to the 42nd floor, where Ethan's corner office overlooked Elliott Bay. Her knock was tentative, but his voice came through the door, crisp and commanding. "Come in." She stepped inside, his office's sleek glass and steel amplifying her nerves. Ethan stood by the window, his dark hair catching the sunlight, his posture as unyielding as ever. He turned, his gray-blue eyes locking onto her, and for a moment, she saw a flicker of something softer, like the man who'd asked about her night at Pinewood. "Maya," he said, his voice betraying a hint of surprise. "What's this about?" He gestured to a chair, but she stood, clutching her purse like armor. "I need to tell you something," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "It's about that night at the resort." His expression shifted, a muscle in his jaw tightening. She took a breath, the words burning in her throat. "I'm pregnant. 8 weeks. It's from that night." The silence was deafening, his eyes searching hers as if weighing every syllable for truth. "Pregnant," he repeated, his voice low, controlled, but his hands gripped the edge of his desk, betraying his shock. "You're sure?" She nodded, pulling a folded doctor's note from her purse, the confirmation she'd gotten that morning. "I saw a doctor today. The timeline matches." Her voice wavered, but she pushed on. "I don't expect anything from you, Mr. Caldwell. You should know." Ethan scanned the note with the same intensity he had brought to contracts. 8 weeks, he murmured, almost to himself. Then his eyes met hers, sharp and unreadable. "This changes everything, Maya. We need to talk. Not here, not like this. Dinner tonight. Not as your boss, but as—" He trailed off, the weight of the unspoken word, father, hanging between them. Maya's heart raced. Dinner felt too intimate, too dangerous, but refusing felt like running from the inevitable. "Okay," she said softly, "but this doesn't mean we're anything more than two people dealing with a mistake." His gaze softened, just for a moment. "Understood. I'll send a car. 7 o'clock. As she left his office, Claire's silhouette lingered in the hallway, her eyes narrowing. Maya knew the assistant's jealousy could turn this secret into a weapon, and the thought chilled her more than the pregnancy itself. Maya Johnson stood in Ethan Caldwell's corner office, the Seattle skyline sprawling beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows of Morrison Enterprises' 42nd floor. The sleek glass desk and polished steel chairs gleamed under the afternoon sun, but the space felt suffocating, as if the air held the weight of her revelation. Her braided hair was neatly pinned, her tailored blouse crisp despite the turmoil inside her. The pregnancy test result, confirmed by a doctor's note she'd handed Ethan moments ago, lay on his desk like a verdict. 8 weeks pregnant, conceived during that hazy night at Pinewood Resort. Ethan's gray-blue eyes, flecked with gold, studied her with an intensity that made her pulse race. His dark hair slightly mussed as he ran a hand through it. Ethan said, "You're sure?" His voice was low and controlled, but his fingers betrayed a tremor as he set the doctor's note down. "This is unexpected." The understatement hung between them, a fragile thread stretched taut. Maya clutched her purse, the weight of her decision to tell him grounding her. She'd braced for dismissal, for the cold calculation of a CEO who thrived on order, but his expression was unreadable, a mix of shock and something softer she couldn't name. "I don't expect anything from you, Mr. Caldwell," Maya said, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. "I'm telling you it's right. Not because I want something. I can handle this on my own." Her words were a shield, asserting her independence. She'd built her career from nothing, clawing her way up in a company where every step felt like a test. A baby, his baby, wouldn't change that. Ethan moved around the desk, closing the distance between them. His cologne, that cedar spice scent from Pinewood, wrapped around her, stirring memories she'd tried to bury. He echoed, "Handle it on your own," his tone sharp, but not unkind. "Maya, this isn't just your responsibility. It's ours." He paused, his eyes searching hers. "But we can't talk here. Not like this. Have dinner with me tonight. Not as your boss, but as the man who was there that night." Maya's breath caught. Dinner felt like stepping onto a tightrope, but refusing seemed like running from the truth. "Okay," she said, her voice softer but firm. But this is about the situation, not us. There's no us. She held his gaze, asserting her boundaries, though the warmth in his eyes made it harder to believe her own words. Ethan nodded, a flicker of respect crossing his face. Fair enough. 7 o'clock. I'll send a car. But before she could respond, he shifted gears, his tone turning professional. There's something else. I've created a new position. Senior Marketing Director, reporting directly to me. More responsibility, a team of 5, and a significant salary increase. Your work on the Henderson merger analysis was exceptional. It's yours if you want it. Maya's jaw dropped, her mind reeling. A promotion? Now? The timing felt like a landmine. She'd poured everything into her reports, proving her worth in a company where she was often underestimated. But this offer, coming minutes after her pregnancy revelation, felt too convenient. Is this because of my work? Or because of... She gestured to the doctor's note, her voice tightening. Ethan's eyes narrowed, but his tone remained steady. Your work. I've been tracking your reports for months. Your insights cut through the noise my VPs churn out. The Henderson analysis sealed it. He stepped closer, his voice dropping. But I won't lie, Maya. I haven't stopped thinking about you since that morning at Pinewood. The way you looked at me and stood your ground, despite being terrified. That's not why I'm offering this, but it's why I'm standing here, asking you to dinner. Her cheeks flushed, mixed with anger, and something she refused to name. You don't get to do this, she said, her voice low but fierce. You don't get to blur the lines between my career and whatever this is. I've worked too hard to have my achievements tied to a mistake. She stepped back, asserting her agency, though his words, I haven't stopped thinking about you, echoed in her mind, stirring the same warmth she'd felt that night. Ethan's expression softened, a rare crack in his controlled facade. I'm not trying to blur anything. The promotion is yours because you've earned it. The dinner is because we need to figure this out together. He gestured to the note. This changes things for both of us, Maya. She wanted to argue, to tell him she didn't need his help, but the weight of the pregnancy, the fear of Claire's watchful eyes, and the memory of Lena's advice, protect yourself, held her back. 7 o'clock, she said finally, turning to leave, but I'm not promising anything beyond a conversation. As she stepped into the hallway, Claire Bennett's silhouette loomed near the elevator, her blonde chignon as sharp as her gaze. Everything okay, Maya? Claire asked, her smile a thin veil over her jealousy. Maya's stomach twisted, sensing the assistant's intent to weaponize any slip. Just fine, Maya replied, her voice cool, and stepped into the elevator, the doors closing on Claire's predatory stare. Tonight's dinner would be risky, but Maya was done escaping the truth. Maya Johnson sat across from Ethan Caldwell at a secluded corner table in Canlis, Seattle's iconic restaurant perched on Queen Anne Hill. The panoramic view of Lake Union shimmered through floor-to-ceiling windows, but Maya barely noticed. Her focus locked on the man before her. Her navy-wrapped dress hugged her still flat stomach, a careful choice to mask the secret she'd revealed hours ago. She was 8 weeks pregnant from their hazy night at Pinewood Resort. Her braided hair fell in a loose cascade, and her fingers smoothed the napkin in her lap, a nervous tick to steady her racing heart. Ethan, his dark hair catching the candlelight, had shed his corporate armor. No tie, white shirt open at the collar, sleeves rolled to reveal strong forearms. The casual look made him seem less like the CEO of Morrison Enterprises and more like a man grappling with an unexpected future. You look beautiful, Ethan said, his gray-blue eyes flecked with gold, holding hers with a sincerity that caught her off guard. His voice was low, intimate, cutting through the soft clinking of glasses around them. "Thank you," Maya replied, her tone cautious. She adjusted her napkin again, the elegance of the setting amplifying the surreal nature of their meeting. "This place is a lot. I've passed it 100 times but never thought I'd be here, especially not with you." Ethan's mouth curved into a half smile, a rare crack in his usual control. "I've never brought anyone here. Business dinners go to the club. Personal dinners." He paused, a shadow crossing his face. "I don't do personal dinners." The admission hung between them, heavy with unspoken meaning. Maya's chest tightened, Lena's warning, "Protect yourself," echoing in her mind. "Then why am I here, Ethan?" She used his first name deliberately, asserting her agency in this fragile moment. "If this is about the baby, it's not a negotiation. It's a conversation, like you said." He leaned back, his fingers tracing the rim of his whiskey glass, untouched. "It's more than the baby, Maya. I want to know you, not just the analyst who writes reports that make my VPs look lazy, but the woman who ended up in my bed and somehow made me feel grounded." His voice softened, almost vulnerable. "I've built my life on control, but you've turned that upside down." Her pulse quickened, his honesty disarming her. She wanted to push back, to keep the walls up, but the memory of that night, his warmth, the fleeting sense of safety, pulled at her. "That's dangerous territory," she said, her voice steady but soft. "You're my boss, or my boss's boss's boss, and I'm carrying your child. This isn't a fairy tale." He nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. "I know, but I'm not asking for a fairy tale. I'm seeking a chance to understand what this is." He leaned forward, his voice dropping. "Tell me about you, Maya, not the analyst, the real you." She hesitated, Lena's advice warring with the pull of his gaze. But something in his tone, genuine, unguarded, made her lower her guard, just a fraction. "I grew up in Tacoma," she began, her fingers stilling on the napkin. "My mom raised me alone after my dad left when she told him she was pregnant. I was that baby. She worked 3 jobs to keep us afloat, and I swore I'd make it worth it. Got a scholarship to UW, graduated summa cum laude, and I've been grinding ever since to prove I belong in rooms like this." She sipped sparkling water, the bubbles sharp against her tongue. "I've never had time for relationships. Never been with anyone before that night. And now this." She gestured vaguely, her voice catching. Ethan's eyes softened, a flicker of pain crossing his face. "Your father left because of you?" he asked, his voice low. "That's why I'd do the same." She looked away, the vulnerability raw. "You're a man who needs control, and babies are chaos. I don't know you, Ethan, not really, but I know how fast things can fall apart." He was quiet for a moment, his fingers tightening around his glass. "When I was 15, my parents died in a car crash," he said, his voice rough. "I raised my sister, kept us fed, and graduated from high school. Built Morrison from a single client in a rented office. Control wasn't a choice. It was survival." He met her eyes, the gold flecks in his gaze catching the light. "But that night with you, I felt something else. Peace. Like I didn't have to hold everything together." Maya's breath caught, his words mirroring her fleeting memories of that night. She wanted to dismiss it, to call it a fluke, but the sincerity in his voice made it impossible. "We can't just feel things and expect it to work," she said, her tone firm but wavering. "I'm not here to be your exception, Ethan. I'm here because we made a mistake, and now we have to deal with it." He leaned closer, his voice a low murmur. "Maybe it wasn't a mistake. It could be something we didn't know we needed. The words hung between them, charged with possibility. Maya felt the pull, the same magnetic draw from Pinewood, but she held her ground. "We order dinner," she said, picking up the menu, her voice steady. "We talk about the baby, and we keep this separate from whatever else you're feeling. Deal?" Ethan's smile was slight but genuine. "Deal." As the server approached, Maya felt the weight of his gaze, like she was a puzzle he was determined to solve. For the first time, she wondered if she was fighting a losing battle against her heart. Maya Johnson sat at her cubicle on the 32nd floor of Morrison Enterprises, the fluorescent lights casting a harsh glow over her cluttered desk. Her braided hair was pinned tightly, her tailored blouse a shield against the chaos threatening to engulf her. The Henderson merger analysis, her team's ticket to proving their worth, blinked on her computer screen, but her focus was shattered. 3 days after her dinner with Ethan Caldwell at Canlis, where his gray-blue eyes had softened with rare vulnerability, Lena jolted her. "Girl, check Seattle Biz now. Sit down for this." Maya's stomach dropped as she opened the gossip blog, its bold red headlines searing into her. Morrison CEO's secret affair. Pregnant analyst, promoted after retreat tryst. The article was a masterclass in innuendo, weaving a narrative of Maya as a scheming opportunist who'd slept her way to the senior marketing director role Ethan had offered. A photo accompanied the story, Ethan helping her from his car outside Canlis, his hand on her lower back, intimate to anyone unaware of their context. Worse was a second image, blurry but damning, a silhouette of Ethan at his Pinewood resort window, Maya's figure in her silk nightgown faintly visible in the background. The article didn't name the pregnancy outright, but hinted heavily, citing sources close to the CEO. Comments below the piece were a cesspool of speculation, tearing into Maya's credentials and branding her a gold digger. Her LinkedIn profile, now public fodder, was dissected to claim she was unqualified for her promotion. Maya's hands shook as she scrolled, her breath shallow. Claire Bennett, Ethan's assistant, was the only person who'd seen her near his suite at Pinewood, and her jealousy over Ethan's attention was a poorly kept secret among the staff. Claire's sharp blonde chignon and predatory smile flashed in Maya's mind. She'd orchestrated this, leaking photos and half-truths to paint Maya as a threat to Ethan's empire. The betrayal stung, but the violation of her privacy, the smearing of her hard-earned reputation, cut deepest. Footsteps approached, and Claire's voice sliced through the office hum. "Maya, I'm so sorry you're going through this," she said, loud enough for nearby cubicles to hear, her tone dripping with false sympathy. "It must not be perfect to have your personal life splashed everywhere." Her eyes gleamed with satisfaction, confirming her role in the leak. Maya stood, her voice cold. "I need to see Mr. Caldwell." She pushed past Claire, ignoring the stares and whispers that followed her through the maze of partitions. Her career, built on years of 60-hour weeks and meticulous reports, was crumbling, and she needed answers. Ethan's office was a war zone when she arrived, papers strewn across his glass desk, his phone ringing incessantly. 3 suits, legal and PR, Maya guessed, huddled at his conference table, their murmurs halting as she entered. Ethan looked up from his desk, his dark hair disheveled, his gray-blue eyes cold and calculating, a stark contrast to the man who'd shared his past over dinner. "Clear the room," he said, his voice clipped, never breaking eye contact with Maya. The team filed out, their glances heavy with judgment. "Maya," Ethan began, pouring a drink from a decanter despite the morning hour. "Have you seen it? The article?" "Yes," she said, her voice steady despite the storm inside. "The photos, too." "Did I leak this?" His eyes narrowed. "Did you?" The question was a blade, sharp and precise. Her heart lurched. How can you ask that? My career's over, Ethan. No company will touch me after this. I'll be the woman who slept her way up forever. She stepped closer, her voice rising. You think I'd torch my own life for this? Ethan took a sip, his calm infuriating. Someone with intimate knowledge fed this to Seattle biz. The timing's convenient. Your promotion, our dinner, now this. His gaze flicked to his desk, where a small device blinked red. My lawyers insisted we record everything now for protection. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. You're recording me? Maya's voice broke, her hands clenching. You think I orchestrated this? That I got pregnant on purpose, manipulated you for a promotion, sold our story for… what? Fame that destroys me? She searched his face for the man who'd spoken of peace at Canlis, but found only the corporate shark she'd always feared. I think you're brilliant, he said, his tone arctic. And clever people play the game better than most. Maya straightened, drawing on every ounce of dignity. For the record, Mr. Caldwell, I didn't leak anything. I didn't scheme for your promotion and didn't want this scandal. My mistake was believing you meant it when you said you'd face this with me. She turned to the door, pausing. Your device can catch this too. I'm pregnant with your child, and I'll protect it with or without you. But you've just shown me who you are. She walked out, the soft click of the door louder than any slam. The office's whispers followed her to the elevator, her phone buzzing with reporter calls, her email flooded with interview requests. Claire's smug glance burned as Maya passed, but she held her head high, her resilience a shield against the ruin closing in. Maya Johnson sat at the small desk in her Seattle studio apartment, the glow of her laptop casting shadows across the cramped space. Her braided hair was loose, framing her face as she typed furiously, piecing together a freelance consulting pitch to keep her afloat. 2 months had passed since the scandal broke, the Seattle Biz article branding her a schemer who'd slept her way to a promotion at Morrison Enterprises. The fallout had been brutal. Forced to resign under the guise of new opportunities, she'd been blocked in Seattle's corporate world, her reputation shredded by whispers and innuendo. Her savings dwindled, and the pregnancy, now at 4 months, added a quiet urgency to her survival. Her navy sweater stretched slightly over her growing belly, a reminder of the life she was determined to protect. Her phone buzzed, Lena's name flashing on the screen. You see the news? Her friend's voice crackled with urgency when Maya answered. Check your email. Morrison just dropped a statement. Maya's heart skipped a beat as she opened her inbox and found a press release from Morrison Enterprises. The headline read, Morrison Enterprises addresses recent speculation. The statement, signed by Ethan Caldwell, was direct. Recent reports about a valued employee, Maya Johnson, are baseless. Her promotion to senior marketing director was earned through exceptional work on the Henderson merger. Personal matters have been misrepresented, and we are pursuing legal action against those responsible for spreading false information. A second article followed, reporting Claire Bennett's abrupt dismissal as Ethan's assistant, citing breach of confidentiality. Maya's breath caught. Ethan had acted, publicly, decisively, defending her reputation and targeting Claire, whose jealousy had fueled the leak. The memory of Claire's smug smile in the office and her calculated betrayal stung less now, but the pain of Ethan's distrust lingered. He'd recorded their confrontation, treating her like an adversary, and that wound hadn't healed. Her phone buzzed again, this time with an email from Ethan himself. Maya, I was wrong. I let fear cloud my judgment. I've fired Claire and started to set things right. Can we talk? Please. Ethan. She stared at the words, her fingers hovering over the reply button. Lena's voice broke through her thoughts. He's trying, Maya. Doesn't erase what he did, but it's something. What are you gonna do? Maya didn't answer. her mind replaying Ethan's cold accusation, his gray-blue eyes devoid of the warmth she'd seen at Canlis. She deleted the email without responding, her pride a fragile shield against the chaos of her feelings. At Morrison Enterprises, Ethan sat in his corner office, the Seattle skyline a muted backdrop to his restless pacing. His dark hair was disheveled, his tie loosened, starkly contrasting his usual polished control. Discovering Claire's role in the leak, her access to his schedule, her interception of a photographer's tip, had ignited a fury he rarely allowed himself to feel. Firing her had been swift, but it didn't erase the damage. Maya's words in their last confrontation, "You've shown me who you are," cut deeper than any boardroom defeat. He'd let paranoia win, recording her like a stranger, and now she was gone, her career in ruins because he failed to trust. He'd spent weeks investigating, confirming Claire's betrayal through security logs and staff accounts. The press release was his first step, a public acknowledgement of Maya's worth, and a rebuke of the gossip. He'd also contacted industry contacts, quietly countering the block list to open doors for her. But her silence, 3 unanswered emails, a returned check for support, told him redemption wouldn't come easily. He drafted another message, his fingers steady despite the ache in his chest. "Maya, I know I don't deserve your trust. I'm trying to fix what I broke. Please, let me know you're okay. The baby. I want to be there. Ethan." Maya read the email at her desk, her hand resting on her belly, where a faint flutter reminded her of the stakes. Lena's advice echoed, "Protect yourself, but don't shut out someone who's trying." She wanted to believe Ethan's regret was honest, but trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. Yet the press release, Claire's firing, the subtle shift in industry whispers, her phone had buzzed with a consulting offer that morning, suggested he was more than words. She typed a reply, her fingers trembling. "I'm okay. The baby's fine. I need time, Ethan. Don't push." She hit send, a small step toward possibility, but not forgiveness. As she closed her laptop, the weight of her isolation lifted slightly. Ethan's actions didn't erase the past, but were a start. Maya felt a flicker of hope for the first time in weeks. Not for them, but for the life she was building, alone or otherwise. Maya Johnson gripped the edge of her bathroom sink, her breath coming in sharp gasps as a contraction tore through her. The cramped studio apartment, its walls lined with second-hand furniture, felt like a shrinking cage. Her braided hair clung to her sweat-dampened forehead, and her loose t-shirt stretched over her 8-month pregnant belly. The past 6 months had been a gauntlet of survival, resigning from Morrison Enterprises after the scandal, scraping by on freelance work, and dodging Ethan Caldwell's attempts to reconnect. His press release and Claire's firing had eased the block list, but the sting of his recorded betrayal lingered. Now, 3 weeks before her due date, pain sharper than anything she'd prepared for in prenatal classes pinned her to the floor. "Come on, baby," Maya whispered, her hand on her belly, trying to breathe as her instructor had taught. "Not yet, okay?" But the contractions were relentless, coming faster, stronger. Panic crept in. Too early. Something could be wrong. She fumbled for her phone, intending to call her doctor, but her trembling fingers hit Ethan's contact instead. The phone rang once, twice, before his voice cut through, sharp with concern. "Maya? Ethan," she gasped, another contraction stealing her breath. "I think the baby's coming. It's too early." The words spilled out, fear overriding her resolve to keep him at a distance. "Where are you?" His voice was steady, commanding, but laced with urgency. "I'm coming. Stay on the line." I tried to call my doctor, but she managed, her voice breaking as another wave hit. "I'm at home." She should have told him she didn't need him, that she'd handled everything alone. Resignation, isolation, survival. But the pain was a tidal wave, and the fear for her baby drowned her pride. "Call 911 now," Ethan said. "I'm 15 minutes away." Maya dialed emergency services, her hands shaking as she gave her address between contractions, now less than 3 minutes apart. The paramedic's calm voice guided her through breathing exercises, but the pain blurred her focus. She barely registered the sound of her apartment door slamming open. Had she ever given Ethan her address? Before he was there, kneeling beside her on the bathroom floor. His dark hair was mussed, his gray-blue eyes wide with a terror she'd never seen in him. "Hey," he said softly, brushing sweat-soaked braids from her face. His hands were gentle, trembling slightly. "I'm here, Maya. You're going to be okay." His cologne, that cedar spice scent from pinewood, grounded her, a fleeting anchor in the chaos. "The baby's too early," she gasped, clutching his hand as another contraction hit. "What if something's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," Ethan said, his voice firm despite the fear in his eyes. "Babies come when they're ready, not when we plan." He squeezed her hand, his shaking. "The ambulance is almost here." His steady yet vulnerable presence chipped away at the walls she'd built since their confrontation. "I'm scared," she admitted, the words raw, her eyes locking onto his. The admission broke something open, the months of silence and hurt dissolving in the face of this primal moment. "I know," he said, lifting her hand to his lips, pressing a soft kiss to her knuckles. "I'm scared too, but we're doing this together." The word "we" hung between them, heavy with meaning. Before she could respond, the paramedics burst in, their efficiency a whirlwind of medical bags and calm instructions. In the ambulance, sirens wailed through Seattle's dawn streets, and Ethan never let go of her hand. His eyes, flecked with gold, stayed on her, whispering encouragement. "You're strong, Maya. You've got this." Between contractions, she looked at him, the man who'd betrayed her trust, who'd fought to make amends, who was here now when it mattered most. Her fear didn't vanish, but his presence made it bearable. At the hospital, the labor stretched into hours, each contraction a battle. Ethan stayed by her side, his hand a lifeline, his voice a steady hum through the pain. "If something happens to me," Maya whispered during a brief lull, her voice hoarse, "promise you'll love our baby enough for both of us." He leaned down, his forehead touching hers, his voice breaking. "Nothing's happening to you, Maya. I won't let it, but I promise, I'm not losing either of you." His words, raw and unguarded, pierced her defenses. After 14 grueling hours, their daughter, Ava, was born, her cry piercing the sterile room. She weighed just over 6 pounds and was healthy, her tiny fingers curling around Maya's with fierce determination. Ethan's eyes glistened as he looked at Ava, then at Maya, a mix of awe and relief softening his features. At that moment, Maya saw not the CEO who doubted her, but the man who'd run to her side, terrified yet unwavering. She held Ava close, her heart shifting, not fully forgiving, but open to something new. Maya Johnson sat in a rocking chair by the nursery window in Ethan Caldwell's Seattle penthouse, the morning sun painting Elliott Bay in hues of gold and pink. Her braided hair fell loosely over her shoulders, and her soft cotton dress felt like a second skin as she cradled their 2-week-old daughter, Ava. The baby's tiny fingers curled around Maya's thumb, her dark eyes glinting with a curiosity that promised to upend their world. Ava's birth, after a harrowing premature labor, had been a miracle, her 6-pound frame a testament to resilience. Maya's heart swelled, but the weight of the past 6 months Resignation, scandal, isolation, lingered like a shadow. Ethan leaned against the nursery door, his dark hair tousled, his gray-blue eyes softened with an adoration that made Maya's breath catch. His rolled-up sleeves and faint trace of baby powder on his shirt were far from the polished CEO she'd once feared. Since Ava's birth, he'd been a revelation, changing diapers at midnight, soothing her cries with clumsy lullabies, and watching Maya with a tenderness that chipped away at her defenses. The scandal, fueled by Claire's betrayal, had nearly destroyed her career, but Ethan's press release and Claire's firing had shifted the narrative. A consulting offer from a rival firm, quietly arranged through Ethan's influence, sat in her inbox, a chance to rebuild her professional life. "Maya," Ethan said, his voice soft, "she has your determination." He stepped into the room, his movements careful not to wake Ava. "Already plotting to take over the world?" Maya smiled, adjusting Ava's pink blanket. "And your stubborn streak. She's up every 2 hours, demanding attention like she owns the place." Her tone was light, but her eyes held a question. The nursery was a temporary haven, with its soft pastels and stuffed animals. She'd agreed to stay here post-hospital, but what came next? Ethan settled into a chair beside her, close enough that his cedar spice cologne mingled with Ava's baby scent. He said, "We need to talk about what happens now," echoing her thoughts. His gaze was steady, but a flicker of uncertainty betrayed him. "What do you want, Maya?" The question carried the weight of their journey. The mistaken night at Pinewood, the scandal, his betrayal with the recording device, his redemption through action. Maya shifted Ava carefully, reaching into the blanket to pull out a folded letter she'd found that morning. She said this was tucked in her blanket, her fingers trembling slightly. "Did you write it before or after she was born?" "Before," Ethan admitted. His voice was rough. "The night you went into labor, while you were resting. I didn't know if I'd have the courage to give it to you." Maya unfolded the paper, his distinctive handwriting filling the page. She'd read it twice, but the words still hit like a tide. "Maya, you came into my life by accident and became my everything. I failed you, letting fear and control win. Holding our daughter, I realized love isn't about order. It's about choosing you, every day, despite the chaos. I'm terrified of failing you both, but more afraid of losing you. I want to be your partner and home if you'll have me. All my love, Ethan." She looked up, meeting his eyes, the gold flecks catching the sunlight. She said softly, "That you wrote this when you thought I might not forgive you." "Why?" "Because I meant it," he said, his voice raw. "I've been choosing you since Pinewood. When I woke up feeling like I'd found something I didn't know I needed. I was too afraid to admit it then, but I'm not now." Maya's heart raced. Lena's advice, "Protect yourself, but don't shut out someone trying," echoed in her mind. She'd fought to stand alone, but Ava's birth had shifted something. Ethan's presence in the hospital, his hand a lifeline through the pain, had shown her a man who could change. "If we do this," she said, her voice firm, "it's not because of Ava. It's because we choose each other. I'm not moving in to play house. I'm selecting a partner. That means no more recordings, no more doubts. Can you do that?" Ethan leaned forward, his hand brushing hers, careful not to disturb Ava. "I choose you, Maya. Every morning, every mess, every moment. I'm done with control if it means losing you." His smile was tentative, hopeful. "And I've already started making amends. Your consulting offer came through my contacts, but your talent sealed it." Maya nodded, offering a lifeline to her career and a resolution to the scandal's damage. I love you, Ethan, she said, the words slipping out, raw and authentic. To clarify, I'm choosing you too. For us, not just Ava. His smile widened, brighter than the morning light. I love you, Maya Johnson, and our stubborn, perfect daughter. He stood, offering his hand. Breakfast? I make decent pancakes, and Ava's due to wake up soon. She laughed, taking his hand, and Ava still nestled against her. Our daughter, she corrected, as they walked to the kitchen, his arm around her waist. Their reflection was a real, messy, and beautiful family in the hallway mirror. A new beginning, born from a mistake, but chosen with open hearts.